Hello and welcome to day 5 of the Meeting Tech Mastery Workshop, and this is the final sort of live public day of it over here on YouTube. We will be carrying on Monday for a live Q&A in a Vivo meeting as well, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. Great to have you all here and see some familiar faces already in the chat. And indeed, Dan, today is where we sort of pull everything together, all the things that we've talked about over the past 4 days. Hello there to you in Burbank, California. Great to see you back here again as well. So let's just go straight on into it, shall we? And I'll talk about, first of all, giving it a little bit of a recap. But for those that are just joining on day 5, where have you been? You can go back and watch the previous days. My name's Alec Johnson over here from Take One Tech, where I cover all of this kind of stuff in a great deal of detail over there as well. But this week is here in collaboration with, obviously, Vivo Meetings. This is the channel that we're on right now. And if you're not already subscribed, do go ahead and subscribe. But this is day 5 of the Meeting Tech Mastery Workshop to help you level up your online presence in your online meetings and also in your online webinars and so on. So, so far, we've taken a look at video and lighting on day 1. Day 2, we started to look at audio. Then day 3 was all about presentations, and I introduced this idea of creating immersive presentations, which is kind of what I'm doing right now, where rather than you talking to a slide deck, looking at ways that you can kind of more sort of integrate yourself into the slides and the content, so that the content is there in support of you, rather than yes, you just sort of replicating the old school way of maybe standing to the side of a projector screen or something like that. But we'll take this to a whole new level in just a moment as well today, because that's what we're going to be focused on today. Yesterday, though, we went through some of the features and functionality of the Vivo Meetings platform itself. And so today we are into live production. And then, as I mentioned, there is a bonus Q&A session, which will be sort of face-to-face. I love the live streaming, and it's great to see all the comments, but nothing quite matches being able to actually see people face-to-face rather than avatars, and also from everyone else's perspective to be able to get your questions answered directly without all of the YouTube delay. So that will be happening on Monday. So in order to get access to that, you will need to register. I have pinned the registration page in the chat. I'm sure you are all registered in the live stream today. It's also in the description as well. So if you are watching this on the replay, you can still go ahead and register after the fact, and you'll get access to the replays of the Q&A. And there is also going to be a PDF going out prior to the Q&A as well, which has got a whole load of information related to everything that we've talked about in the workshop so far. So be sure to register to get access to that as well. So today then, what are we looking at? Well, it is live production, and I'm going to start by just giving an introduction to exactly what do I mean by that, because I know we've talked about it, and I know there's folks over here and watching that are fully familiar with this, but there may well be many people who are not quite sure what I'm talking about when I talk about live production. I will be then introducing the software that I use. There is other pieces of software available. I should say the Ecamm Live that I'll be talking about is a Mac application, but I will be talking about alternatives there as well, and also some hardware options as well. Next, we'll be talking about Stream Deck, if you're not familiar with that. Regardless of anything that you're doing in terms of meetings, the Stream Deck for me is an ultimate productivity tool, as we'll talk about. And it's something that I bought for the kind of live production side of things, and I'll show how that works. But I'll also just sort of explain a few of the other ways that you may be able to use it, or you might consider using it to really just level up your efficiency in everything that you may well be doing on your computer. Next, I'll be giving a bit more of an overview of my current studio setup. So I had an email from Morris, who was in the chat yesterday, saying could I go into a bit more depth in terms of the overall setup. So I will be doing that as well. And then I'll be talking about my sort of meeting workflow. So all of these things, these different components, how do they all actually work in practice when I'm doing a meeting, and kind of really exactly the same as what I'm doing when I'm doing this live stream. So I'll talk a little bit about my processes when it comes to that. So let's start off then with talking about exactly what I mean by live production, and why is it something that you should consider adding into your meetings. And obviously, when you think of online meetings, you've got everyone's in their own little box. Maybe somebody's on Spotlight, their full screen or whatever. And this is great. It allows people around the world to communicate with each other. The thing that live production adds to this is it's all of the things that I've been doing for the duration of this past week. So things like just being able to say, oh, I want to show you my Stream Deck, for example. Let me just flick over to this different scene. And I've just immediately jumped into that scene without needing to go into any screen sharing, try and find the window that I want to share or anything like that. Maybe I want to just show you a different camera angle and just switch over to this camera and say, let me show you this thing that I'm working on, or maybe switch over to this because I've got something on my desk that I want to show you. So live production is that. It's just the ability to switch between different video sources and bring stuff on and off the screen essentially at the touch of a button. You can do it with mouse clicks as well, but for sure, the Stream Deck is the best way to do it. So why do this, and why sort of invest the time and effort in sort of figuring out how to put this all together? And incidentally, it's pretty simple actually. You'll see I'll do a sort of demo of how to build out a few scenes. But why do that? Well, for me, it is this concept of we're here on our meetings. We've got some sort of value that we're trying to impart, whether we are selling something, whether we are educating, whatever it is, whether we're collaborating with people in the meeting. The whole point is we're trying to get something that is as close to being, right there with the person as we can get. Now, I would argue that actually with live production, you can almost get something that's better than the in-person experience to a certain extent, because you can have a whole load of information at your fingertips. You can be bringing that up on screen and showing that information sort of side by side with you, just as I have been demonstrating just now. And actually, to actually get your message across, sometimes that might be a little bit easier than, if you were literally sitting in a meeting room with somebody, sitting next to them, and then, you need to just pull up some random information. It may actually be easier to do this in the way that I've just sort of demonstrated. But crucially, the point is that there is no break in your communication. And that's where the live production really adds a tremendous amount of value, because there is no break in your messaging. There's no break in the information that you're giving, and there's no point where people could potentially get distracted or lose track of the message or anything like that, in the same way that there can be sometimes when you are in a regular meeting and you want to share your screen. There may be this sort of moment where you're trying to find out what it is you want to share. Then when you bring up the information that you want to share, then maybe the information is front and center, but you then maybe just in a small window, over to the side or whatever it happens to be, wherever it happens to be on the screen. So for me, this idea of you being a part of all of the content that you're sharing, information coming onto the screen that is in support of what you're saying, is really a total game changer. And it's something that, is the thing that I get the most comments about, outside of Take One Tech and what I'm doing here, but just in general when I'm doing other things in business with people and I'm able to present things in this way, it's the thing that gets the most comments. And it has the maximum impact, I think. And the other aspect to it as well, aside from it just being a great sort of communication tool and allowing you to deliver your value in the most effective way possible, it's also something that just immediately elevates you above the majority of other folks that are out there, educating, selling, whatever it is, whatever field that you're in. And there is this thing that is just sort of an implied sort of level of quality, that if you're just doing this in your regular meetings, then it kind of has a knock-on effect that people assume that, well, if this is how somebody's showing up in their meeting, then it's a bit like having the fancy offices, the fancy suits, and all of these kind of things. That is, it's not so much a status thing, but a sort of reflection of quality. And so I think that if you can present yourself in a quality way, it reflects well on your product, whatever that happens to be, that whatever the value is you're trying to deliver. So all of that is to say, it's something that's really worth the investment. And the other great thing about it is it's not really that much of an investment in any case. My studio might well be a little bit over the top and extreme for just, leveling up your meetings. And I'm not suggesting that somebody goes ahead and builds out all of this. And I'll talk about my studio a bit more a little bit later. But you really don't need to go to this length just to make, a significant improvement. So the options that you've got when it comes to, what I've been doing here, as I say, I'm using some software called Ecamm Live there, and it is a Mac application. If you want to do this on a PC, there's a number of different options. There's a cross-platform, actually both Mac and PC software called OBS, which stands for Open Broadcast Software. That is a free piece of software. It's open source, and it's it's also great. Personally, I tried OBS and then I discovered Ecamm, and I just found that Ecamm was, for me, a lot more logical, a lot more user-friendly, and I just much preferred the way that it worked. And so for me, it was worth the price of a subscription at $40 a month. It was worth that to me. When I look at the value add in Ecamm, it's, whatever it is, if I pay for it annually, it's around about $1 a day. So it's certainly adding a lot more value to what I'm doing for that. There are other hardware options though. So if you're looking to do just some basic sort of camera switching potentially, maybe you've got a screen share or something, you just want to bring that in. There's something called the ATEM, which is very popular as well, the ATEM Mini. And that is something that is a sort of hardware switcher. This is also something that I looked at as well. But for me, Ecamm still checked all of the boxes because although the ATEM is, some may say it's plug and play, you plug in your multiple different cameras into this box. And then that then plugs into your computer. And so when you are in your Vivo meeting or whatever it happens to be, you can just select the ATEM as your camera source. And then you've got these buttons that you can kind of switch between all of your cameras or screen shares or things like that. So in theory, it's a lot more plug and play. However, there is a lot of bigger barrier to the design aspect of it. So if you want to design something that looks a little bit more professional, then it's going to be a lot harder in that. And so for me, Ecamm, as you'll see, as I'll go through and demonstrate, is something that is really, really worth the whole price of admission. And there's loads of different aspects to it as well, rather than just the camera switching. So with that said, and I've just dropped a link, by the way, to Ecamm. So anyone who's not an Ecamm user, you can click to find out that. It's also in the description. And there's an offer code in there as well, Take One Tech, that gets you 15% off your first payment towards a subscription, if that is something that you are interested in. So let's get into it, shall we? And we will go through and I'll show you the sort of Ecamm interface. I'll talk through it and I'll show you specifically from a business point of view, because I have lots of coaching calls with people where they're maybe new to Ecamm and they're just looking to level up their online meetings, which is exactly what we're here for. And really with very quickly, as you'll see, we can build out a few different scenes that you may want to use, and it's going to really just sort of transform the way you look on your calls. So let's do that right now. I'll just switch over to this, which is, this is now basically, you're seeing the desktop that I've got all of my Ecamm stuff on. And I'll just sort of talk through this. But what I'll do first is I'll just close down some of these things actually, because although it can look sort of quite complicated when you first start up, you don't actually need to have all of these windows open at all. And so I'm just going to close down all of these except this one over here. And I'll just demonstrate sort of what I've got set up at the moment. So this thing here is called the main window, the Ecamm main window. All of those other things that we had around it were called the utility windows. And there's various different utility windows that serve different purposes. And you can have as many or as few of them open as you want. And I don't necessarily have them all open all the time, but some of them serve certain purposes at other times than others. So with that said, let's just go through and take a look at this first utility window. Incidentally, you'll see that there's another little version of me up here. I've left that up there just so that as I go through, I'll be taking my camera off this screen at times. So it just means that I'm still up there in the screen in case you want to see that. So down here, we've got, this is called the scenes window. Now, you could think of scenes as either slides in a slide deck or scenes in a theater, whatever you want to think of it, scenes in a movie. And I've got several scenes. So there's my sort of, this one that is called my main scene. This is basically, obviously, it's just me. I've got another one, which is my different camera angles here. So you can see this as front right, back right, over shoulder. And then I've got another one for keynote. I'll come back to that. Then I've got this series of screen share scenes. Now, although these are sharing the screen, what you'll see is they are actually sharing different portions of the screen. So if I just come out of here for a moment, what you'll see on my monitor over here, I've got another microphone just getting in the way of the shot there. But over on my big monitor here, I've got different sort of zones of the screen. So I've got my Stream Deck application, which I'll be showing you later, browser window here, browser window there. And what I've been doing is I've been sharing specific portions of that screen. So if I switch over to this one, for example, that's sharing the portion of that screen where the Stream Deck is. So that's kind of what's going on in terms of those screen shares. Just coming back to the scenes though. Further down here, we've also got this top-down shot, which is one from a camera just above my head. And then finally, we've got this one, which I call whiteboard, which is that scene that I had for showing you for doodling on the screen, if you like, with that video pencil app, which I'll talk about a little bit later as well. So that's what scenes are. And the other thing then that we could have open, if I just show you this one, is something called overlays. So if I just open this window down here is called the overlays window. And that's basically, anything that's actually in the scene. So here we've got my main scene, and what we've got in the scene there is we've got the camera. So if I just unlock this scene for a second, we've got the camera, and then we happen to have this background image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that off, and I'll show you the process of if you were starting from scratch with Ecamm and you just wanted to build out a couple of scenes to use in your meetings. Maybe you want to have a main camera. Maybe you want to have another one that is sharing a Keynote slide deck or something like that, or PowerPoint, and then maybe another one that is just a general screen share. Well, it's so simple to do this, and what you could start with, if I just bring across a Finder window here, I'm just going to start with a new scene. So down in the scenes window here, I'm going to click on new scene, and I'm going to call this demo main. And we could start with, let's say we want to have some sort of branding going on all of our scenes. And I'm just going to drag and drop an image in there. So let's say that this is going to be our image that we want to use. You'll notice in the overlays, that image that I've just dragged in has appeared in here. And incidentally, there are 3 different places where overlays can appear. So either they're going to be something that you want to have like in every scene at the, right at the top, something that's just in the current scene, but you can also select them to be in the background. And this is a great way to create a sort of consistent look across all of your different scenes, is you have an image that's in the background, and then for each scene, we're just sort of going to build out on top of that. So if I want to add a camera in, I can just click on this little camera here. There, it's added in a camera. It's chosen my default camera, which is my webcam. I'm going to change that, though, to this one. And then I can change the shape of that. You can see how easy this is. It's just literally drag and drop. There are also some little sort of boxes that you can sort of snap to as well to sort of crop in on that particular place. So there it is. There is our first scene done. Okay, so that's one down. Let's do another one. What I'm going to do with this one, though, is let's say I want to just duplicate that scene. So now let's call this demo and screen share. Like this. And for this one, what I'm going to do is, now that we've got this, I'm going to take this existing thing, and let me just take my controls off the screen for a second to get rid of those. So let's say I want to do a screen share, and I've got my monitor over this side. So maybe I want to put my video up in this top corner. And now down in the overlays window, I'm going to click on this little screen share icon. And now we've got a screen share of my desktop. This is got my chat and things like that. But I can click in this little pencil. I can choose any display. So let me just take a random guess at which one it is. I can never remember which way around these are. It's not that one. It's going to be the last one I check. Obviously, of course it is. That's always the way it goes. Let's try that one. There we go. So that happens to be that large display. And so you can see how when I was showing you how previously the screen share that I'd set up, it was sort of zoomed into particular parts of this. So let me just show you how that works. If I come into here and make that just widescreen, let's say I want to just be sort of cropped into this window just over here. If I just click on the option, I can just drag and crop into just that window over here. And I can crop in from here as well. And now I'm just going to line that up with there, drag it out. So it's so easy to just sort of create these things. Maybe we might want to make that a slightly different aspect ratio, something like that. And then just position our things over there. Maybe we might even want to put our logo or something like that down in the bottom corner. So I can just literally drag and drop. Let's put the logo for this event in there. Let's put that underneath. Let's also put the Vivo logo in as well. Whoops, it's made it giant, of course, to begin with. I say of course, but because that's the way these things always go. It's probably a bad example for a logo, really, because it's a blue on a blue background, but I'll leave it anyway. You'll get the idea. Maybe that might be better positioned somewhere else, but I'll just leave it there for the time being. You'll get the idea. I would obviously use one with a different thing on. You can change things like the border. So this has got a border on it. You can change things like the whether you want the rounded corners, all of these sort of design elements. I could add a drop shadow onto this. So now we've got a little drop shadow going on. I might want to be consistent and add the same drop shadow to the screen share. Maybe even, let's do this one as well. There, like that. So now we've got a drop shadow on that. So that is, again, really quick to just build out that scene. Didn't take too long at all, just get the border the same. Let's say we also want to do a presentation as well. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to load up, there was a sort of dummy presentation that I did on one of the other days. So let me just load this one up. And what I've got is, if I now duplicate this screen share, and what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to call this one Demo Keynote. Now, I've talked about immersive presentations where you're sort of part of the presentation, but let's say you are not at that stage yet and you've just got a regular presentation. Let's see how easy it is to build that out. So we've got this as our keynote. I'm just going to delete that altogether. And let's say that this one, where should we put ourselves? Oh, I'll leave us there. But what I'll do is I'll add in a new screen share. Once again, it's going to default to just sharing my primary desktop. But if in here I go to change it to Keynote, so we're just choosing the application. I'm just going to choose Keynote, and it's brought these slides in. I'm just going to change the aspect ratio. There's obviously lots of other settings that you can do in this, but this is just to sort of show the point. Let me get rid of these logos on this one. Let's say I want to make that a little bit bigger. And then maybe I might want my camera just in front of that. So in the overlays window here, you can see we've got screen share. Let me delete the ones we're not using. In this current scene, we've got the screen share and we've got camera A, and camera A is currently underneath the screen share. So I want to just move it up so it is above it in the layers. And now you can see the effect of that. So very quickly, I've just created 3 scenes. And if I just come out of this sort of demo mode, here is the first scene that we've just created. Here is one that's sharing a website. So this is a browser here. So I can scroll through this on my computer and it's scrolling it on the screen. I should probably just take that. It's probably the wrong one to take out, but I'll take that out just so that it's because it's not really standing out too much on the that background. And then I've got this scene. So already in our online meeting, we've got a camera like this. So it might look a little bit different to a regular camera because we've got some sort of border going on and, on brand colors. Then, if I want to share my desktop or share a browser, we've got this second scene here and I can go ahead and show whatever it is on that browser. And then we've also got our slides. And so if I just sort of go through my slide deck, then we've got, all of that in there as well. So I hope you'll agree that that is a much better way to present, and it's also a lot more fluid as well. And that's really the key for me, is just to be able to sort of click to go back to that main scene and then click in to go to Keynote. So I'm doing the demonstration, I'm talking about my Keynote slides, then there's maybe some sort of conversation point comes up out of this, and I want to flick back and have the conversation. Maybe we're talking about something that then relates to a website, and so I want to be able to just click into the website to go to demonstrate that, whatever the case may be, then it adds a lot more fluidity to it. So if I just come back into my demo mode though as well, one of the things we did there was we put that background image in. So we've now got this show in background. We've got that just an Adobe stock image. What you can also do though is you can actually add in videos. So I might want to just drag and drop this video. I'm going to drag it straight into the background. And now if I drop that in, then now we've got some sort of moving background, and I can just toggle off the camera for a second. This is essentially the background that's going on, but you may want to have something like that. Personally, for meetings, I find that a little bit distracting, but for something like a webinar or a live stream, then that has its place potentially. So it just adds a little bit of movement, a little bit of potentially a little bit more interest to the session. And as you can see, as I switch through the slides, because we added that, I say slides, the scenes, you can see that that has then carried over into all of those ones because we added them in as a background. Incidentally, if you've got lots of different use cases, or you've got maybe different projects you're working on, different companies, you can just create a set of scenes that you're going to use in all of these, and then literally just go through and, for one particular use case, you're going to switch out your background and the logo or whatever, and it's really quick then once you've created your sort of stock scenes to just go ahead and quickly swap everything out. So the one other thing then that I should just mention about Ecamm, which is whoops, I just toggled the wrong thing off there. Let me just bring it back again. Put my camera back up. The other thing then was this whole idea of immersive presentations, and I did talk about this yesterday. So in the session, or sorry, the day before yesterday, where I was talking about how we made these in Keynote using things like the Magic Move transitions. So these presentations that I've been doing the past few days, this is now just a live Keynote that you're seeing that I'm demonstrating in the window. And so I won't go over that because that was something that was covered yesterday. So all of this stuff coming on and off the screen. But what I can show you though is how this actually is done in Ecamm, because it's pretty simple once you probably guess once you've seen what we've just looked at. But back over into Ecamm, all I've got then is if I just create a new scene. So I'm just going to go and create a completely new scene. But for this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a screen share basically. And so I'm going to select a screen share, but I'm going to have it select, it's defaulted to the current application, but I'm going to have it select as Keynote. And so now I've got a scene that is basically just sharing Keynote. And if I drag Keynote over here, this is my Keynote window, the one that's at the front. And if I just move it out of the way, the one that you're seeing in here is basically Ecamm Live is screen sharing the Keynote. And what that means is that when I click on my transition, it's going to bring up the transition in Keynote, but obviously that's coming through into Ecamm as well. And so the net effect of that is, if I come out of my little demo mode for you for a second, the net effect of that is that whatever happens in Keynote is happening in Ecamm. And so that is one instance where I'm routing the live video through Keynote, or as we now know, it could work with PowerPoint as well. And then this is routing into Ecamm, but I'm still using all of the power of Ecamm because I'm using all of these different scenes and things like that. So you can see how quickly, though, that was all built out. And I know there is obviously a learning curve to it, and so I have a little bit of experience, which makes it a little bit quicker. But honestly, once you sort of get up and running with it, it is so quick to just put these together. And if you're creating a new presentation or anything like that, then you can be pretty effective and quick at this. And I'll just revert back to our previous setup and previous branding, just simply by clicking on these things here. And now you see we're back to the way it was with just a couple of clicks. And now I'm back to all of my old scenes. So that is really the sort of power that we have with Ecamm and what it allows us to do. So let me just quickly come in and check in with the chat and see where we're up to. Hello from Morris from Texas. Great to see you here as well. Glad you could make it. Hope you're feeling a bit better as well. Hey from Vancouver, Russell. Great to see you as well. And incidentally, I should say, let me just quickly say, I've also got in Ecamm, I've also got these comments. So this that I'm doing right now, when I say it's live production software, it's live streaming software, and we've got this virtual camera that you can toggle on. So basically, everything that happens in Ecamm happens in the Zoom, in the in the meeting as well. I keep making that Freudian slip, but there you go. And you can basically just click on any of these. So there is Dan's comment, but Alec is looking forward to going to bed at a normal hour. I honestly am. So it will be nice tomorrow evening. And if I just click on one of these comments, that's how that comes up there as well. So, hey, Terrace, great to see you here as well. Now, where have I put my comments? I've moved them out from their usual position. And great to see you here, Ken, as well, from Texas. Crazy to think what used to be hundreds of thousands can be recreated at home for a fraction of the investment. It really is, actually. I mean, it's in the Ecamm community, we kind of I think people sort of take it for granted, and sometimes there's, feature requests and things like that people put in, and then it is amazing that this, what we can do with software now that is, obviously made enabled by the the power of computers these days and things like that. But it is really amazing, actually, what we can do. And you saw there how quickly that could be done. I talked earlier about the ATEM, and that I've just shown you is something that would take a considerable amount of time to set up in something like the ATEM. Now, there is benefits in having an external switcher rather than software, because obviously software is taking processor power, it's extra overhead, and so on. So there is benefit to using some sort of hardware switcher. But for me, the benefit of just being able to create these scenes, the design and everything like that, far outweighs that, when we've got computers that can handle it. But yeah, it is really, really crazy to think about that. Is there a way to combine the ATEM's hardware capabilities with Ecamm's software capabilities? To be honest with you, they kind of what's the word? The ATEM is going to be presented to your computer as a single camera source. So that's the first thing. If you were doing those scenes that we've just talked about there, so those, where it's just my cameras over here, these ones like that, then technically I could have one scene in Ecamm and then be doing that camera switching with the ATEM. So in that sense, you could combine from that point of view. But then what you'd have to make sure is that when you went over to your other scenes, like this scene or this scene, that you were in the, you had the correct camera selected in the ATEM. Otherwise, you may find that you're in the wrong one. So technically, you could combine them. But what most people find is that because of the, the power of Ecamm for all the layouts and things like that, there may be times, let's say, for example, I've got my top-down camera above me, and I've got this camera. If both of these cameras were plugged into the ATEM, this scene would simply not be possible without using the ATEM for, to actually create the scene, because the ATEM will only be serving or only presenting its output to the computer. There is no, you can't sort of take 4 cameras into the ATEM and then display any one of those cameras. So as soon as you start wanting to have 2 of your cameras on screen, that's where the ATEM sort of falls down. So I know that there's lots of people who had ATEMs and come into Ecamm and they try to combine them, and then pretty soon the ATEM sort of moves over to a shelf or a cupboard somewhere. So that's the only thing to note about that. But if you're only ever going to be switching, one camera to another, and they're never going to be on screen at the same time, then the ATEM could be a great way to avoid having multiple cameras plugged into your computer. And I'll talk about the hardware and things like that a little bit later as well. But generally, folks generally end up with just the Ecamm, because the other thing is, one of the benefits of the ATEM is because you've got the little buttons to sort of switch from one thing to another. Well, basically, Ecamm is a camera switcher. It's just a software camera switcher, and the Stream Deck then becomes the sort of physical buttons that we use to do that. So I'll talk about Stream Deck next, actually. If appropriate, can you please quickly demonstrate how you got the angle made in your agenda overlay? Oh, I see. So yeah, so this I can certainly do that for you, no problem. This is here in Keynote. And this is something that I demonstrated yesterday, which was this idea of, or the day before yesterday, I should say, which is this tool called the Magic Move tool. And all I did was I've got my item here, which is just happens to be this shape, and then the text. If you mean the angle on these individual bullet points here. Let me make that a bit bigger. If you mean the angle on the text there, it's basically because they're all just free floating pieces of text, and then I'm animating them individually. But what I've done is, if I just bring this onto screen, which I think this is probably what you're talking about, if I go to the format menu in Keynote, and then I just get these things kind of more or less where I want them in order, there is a tool which is over here under the Arrange tools, which is Distribute. So if I select multiple different things, I can say Distribute vertically. So it's going to put them all evenly distributed in a vertical plane. You can do horizontally, but actually if you just do evenly, it's going to do them in a sort of in a line, basically. So it's going to line them up both horizontally. Sorry, it's going to distribute them both horizontally and vertically. So that's the thing there. Yeah, they're individual text items that have then just been distributed in that way. So I think that answers the that one. And hey George, great to see you here as well. Yeah, Ecamm is just I'm such a fanboy of Ecamm. The Travel Masters community, thank you very much. I'm glad you are liking it. Question, why put the live in Keynote or PowerPoint when you can do it in Ecamm? Oh, so sorry. This was something I covered on day 3. You can do the video in there. The only reason that I route it through Keynote is for one little thing, which cannot be done in Ecamm, and that is this little transition. And it's just such a silly thing, really. But this is why I do it. I'll show you. Let me just bring my, I'm going to play my PowerPoint, my Keynote slides again, and I'll bring you back over to this. So now you're looking at Keynote. The only reason I route my video through Keynote is so that I can animate my camera when I bring stuff onto screen. So like this, if I just press my button, you see how my camera slides over. I mean, it seems so silly to do this thing through Keynote for just that. You don't have to do that. What you could do is you could be just sort of on the screen and have the content come out from the side. Just being a little bit of a perfectionist about these things. I don't like the way that it kind of like looks like it's squashing me on the screen, but you can certainly do all of that. I went through all of this on day 3 though, but yeah, that is the reason why I route my my video through Keynote, which might seem a little bit overkill potentially. So let me just come out of here for a second and get this one up here. Where are we with the questions? I build studios in my corporate life for live virtual classroom work that cost over exactly. Yeah, I mean it is pretty amazing. I'll run through some of the stuff that I've got in my studio a bit later, actually. But it's what we can actually achieve now in our home studios is pretty amazing. The other thing about this, I mean. So I live in the northeast of Thailand. Right now I'm in a little cottage at the bottom of my garden. So it is like literally you can work from anywhere and people just don't necessarily know where you're coming in from, and the quality and the broadcast and everything that you can do these days with relatively little investment is pretty amazing. What is the blinking light on there? Well, funny enough, actually, that is a camera switcher, but I'm not using it for switching cameras. Let me just show you what that is. So you mean this blinking light down here. And this blinking light is actually, it is a camera switcher, but it's a PTZ controller as well. So it's a pan, tilt, zoom controller for cameras. Now, this camera that I'm looking at you at is actually a PTZ camera. So what I can do is I can select camera 1 on here, and then I can press this button and I can pan the camera like that. And then I can press another button and pan it back. And if I want to show you a different angle, I can press my preset 3 and it's going to move over there. So it's a bit weird. I've got a camera switcher on my desk, but there's no cameras plugged into it, no camera feeds plugging into it. It's all blank. I'm only using it over the network for its controlling capabilities. So that's why it's kind of tucked under there for just when I need to do that. So that's what that blinking light is. And it's only blinking, by the way, because it blinks when it's set to use the buttons for that. Normally the thing doesn't flash, and that would be where you would normally select the cameras. But as I say, it's there's no camera feeds that are plugged into that right now. So let me just come and check some other things. I'll go through some more of the stuff that's on my setup a little bit later as well. I'll just talk about Stream Deck as well. How do you have the screen installed above the the Rodecaster Pro 2? So my office, my studio, it often looks nice from this side, but when you get behind it, that's when all of the MacGyver the MacGyver work comes into play. So my Rodecaster is on a monitor arm. So it's got a VESA mount on the back. But what I've done is I've sort of extended that out. I've got an arm here, and then this monitor has a VESA mount, but I've just basically, because it's so lightweight, I'm only using 2 of those screws. And then there is a sort of an articulated arm on the back that is then mounted into the back of this. So that just then sits on this on as if it's on top of the Rodecaster. It's just kind of mounted in that position. And this then is basically kind of like my AV station, if you want. So that's my Rodecaster, and then this is where like all my Ecamm stuff normally sits. So yeah, that's how that is mounted. A bit of a hack job and various other different things put in place to get that mounting though. How to get the angle on the image? So that was the so I see. So let me come back to this then. Where are we? It is this one. So you were referring to the angle that I had on this, I guess. So that's because the camera itself. If I just hide some of this other stuff, and I'll just hide that out of the way as well. What we've got in this, let me just pop that down so that you can actually see. What we've got in this slide, there is no angle on the actual camera itself. It's just that it's behind all of this other stuff. So all of these other things are just elements on the screen. And what I did, having just hid that, I need to put it back again, like this. All I had my camera like this, and then I have this shape here, and this shape here. And what I'm doing is I'm using that Magic Move tool. So in the animation, in the slide transitions, there's this transition that is called Magic Move. And what that does is it looks for the position of every object in this slide, and then it looks for the position of it in the next slide, and it moves everything to those positions. So what that looks like is like this. If I play the transition, what you'll see is basically those things are just sort of basically moving into the screen. And so my camera sort of moving across and all that other stuff coming in, it's not actually an angle on the camera. It's just that there are those angular objects over the top of it. And if it comes down to that, then with any object in Keynote, if you just drop on any shape in there and you can right click on it and you can say, make editable or edit shape somewhere. It's maybe because that's got something in. Somewhere in here. Where has it gone? It's always the same, isn't it? Oh, I tell you what it is. It's because you have to. It's because I've added the image into it. There we go. If I have a shape like this, and then I right click on it and say make editable, then I can drag any of this. I can drag a shape like that, make that a sharp point. So things like that. So this is how you can basically create the shape. So I basically just created those shapes in Keynote just like that. Hope that did answer it this time, second time round. So let me see. No problem, Morris. Great to hope that's helped. And Blinking lights can cause gas attacks. Yes, gas is the acronym Gear Acquisition Syndrome. So we can get caught in this trap. And so this is part of the thing of I like to say is, although I'm showing you some of the stuff I've got in my studio, it's not to say that you need all of this stuff by any stretch. I mean, everything that I've talked about here, you could do with your built-in webcam. If you've got Ecamm, then you could use your regular camera, or maybe, use your iPhone if you want to position it differently, or whatever phone you've got, and then have that come into your computer as your camera. And so it's all about, if you maybe think about some lighting or position regular household lights in such a way that you are well lit. I mean, all cameras these days on mobiles are pretty outstanding, really, aren't they? So you don't need to go to all of this expense to get something that's looking pretty professional. And it's really the effects that we can add with, all the branding and so on, using something like Ecamm is the thing that can really set things apart. So with all of that said, let me just go and talk about the sort of next piece of the puzzle, really, which is the Stream Deck, because this is the thing that for me sort of ties it all together. Because one of the comments that I get sometimes from coaching clients is when they're looking to integrate this stuff is they say, okay, if I'm going to be potentially using Ecamm, I'm then controlling my meeting platform, and then maybe I'm also using Keynote or PowerPoint or something like that. Then suddenly, psychologically, you might think, well, I'm juggling lots of, got to keep lots of balls in the air at the same time. In actual fact, though, the Stream Deck is something that kind of unifies it all. And ultimately, what you end up with is something that rather than having lots of different things that you're controlling, you've got this thing on your desk that you can control it all by. Now, I happen to have 3 of them and 2 foot pedals on the floor as well that are doing things. But essentially, one is all that you need. I really highly recommend getting one, even if you're not thinking of doing massive things with your meetings, because it is such a productivity tool. So I'm going to just quickly show you my setup, and you'll see what it's doing. But then for those scenes that we created earlier, I'll show you how you would just literally build out something like this with your Stream Deck in pretty much a matter of moments as well. So here you can see that what I've got here is the application, the Stream Deck application, and this is basically matching exactly with what I've got on my Stream Deck here. So all of these different buttons, the Stream Deck is essentially just a USB controller, a USB keyboard. It looks like this. It's got a USB socket in the back. It's also got a little stand, so it sort of sits slightly elevated on your desk if you want it to, or you can have it more sort of flat like a keyboard. In terms of the size of it, here is the size of it compared to a sort of regular keyboard. So it looks something like that. What is different about this, though, is that to a regular keyboard is that all of these here are actually tiny little screens, or at least they've got screens in them. And what that means is that you can put little icons on them. You can control what each of those buttons does, and we'll see how to do that pretty quickly in a moment as well. I'll just plug this one back in though. And then what that means is that you can have all kinds of different actions that you're controlling but when you press these buttons. Now, I'm going to talk about how to set this up to use it with Ecamm and show you how quick it is to get this all set up. But just to know that you can do pretty much I want to say pretty much anything that you might want to do on your computer with it, because I use an application called Keyboard Maestro, which is an automation, a productivity tool for the Mac, and so the Stream Deck can control that. But even just the native built-in controls on the Stream Deck can do things like pressing a button and it will open up all the different applications that you want to use for a particular workflow. Maybe you have client meetings and you want to open up, their website, their account details, or whatever it is for that particular client. One button press can literally do all of that. You could use it in conjunction with a window management app like Moom for the Mac, which is MOOM. And what that allows you to do is save different presets for where your applications are on your screen. So then, as well as pressing the button to open up all your apps, it can automatically then immediately just actually put them all in the right place as well. And I'm all about, this sort of consistency of layouts, so that, when you are in doing any particular job, any particular workflow, everything is always exactly where you expect it to be. And this is something that you can do with the Stream Deck. But aside from that and the sort of massive productivity power, let's take a look at how easy it is to just actually use it as your sort of mission control. This is the way that I like to think of it. So I'll go back over to my Stream Deck app for you. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch over to that second Stream Deck. And I've got a completely blank profile set up. And the way that it works is these images here, or these little icons here, or lack of icons, but these little buttons, these all relate directly to the buttons that are on your Stream Deck. So you'll see how this one's got lots of pretty pictures on, pretty icons. This one is completely blank at the moment. And as you can see in the app, it's blank in here as well. Then you have a series of plugins, which is where you've got all sorts of different actions that you can add on. Where I mentioned about you can open and close applications, well, you would literally just drag on this open button. Maybe you might want to open, Ecamm or any other app or file or folder. You just literally click on here. You'd just be able to browse to it. So let's say we do actually want to open Ecamm as the first step. Click on OK there. Click on this. And so now we've got a button, and as you can see, if I switch back over to my Stream Deck, that button has now appeared here, or at least the icon has appeared on that button. So now we've got a button that would open Ecamm. I could do a multi-action and have it open, our browser, our Vivo meetings, or whatever it happens to be as well. But that is how easy it is to just drag that on. So then if we go into our Ecamm Live actions, because anything that we can do in Ecamm Live, we can do more or less, not quite everything, but many of the things we can do with a button on the Stream Deck. So those different scenes that I created, let's come over here. There was one scene that we created which we called Demo Main, and you'll notice how this list here is just updated with all the scenes that we've got in Ecamm. So if I go to Demo Main, that was one of them. We've got another scene that we wanted to have, which was the one where we are sharing our screen. So let's click on here. That was called Demo Screen Share. And then we had another one, Run Scene here, which was Demo Keynote. Then we've also obviously got Keynote slides, haven't we? So let me just come back out over here, and I'm just going to switch into my other Keynote presentation for a second. Down here, though, if I go down to where Keynote is, we've got a Keynote plugin, and here we can have next and previous slide. So if I go previous slide, I'll put that one down there, and next slide I'll put over here. So as quickly as that, what I've now got is I've got these buttons that allow me to change the scene in Ecamm, and then I've got also buttons that allow me to advance forwards and backwards in my slide deck. And once again, just to show you that those buttons are now on this device. So if I now press this button here, it's going to switch out to that main scene we created. I'm going to now press the second button. That is the screen share that we set up. And press the third button, and that is now switching me to the one of our slide deck. And then remember, we've got the forward and backward for our slides. So clicking on that, that's now going to take us into our slide transitions. And I'm controlling all of this just with these few buttons. So actually, if you think about what you might want to do in the context of just a business setting where you want to have just a few scenes, maybe share your Keynote or whatever, and then be able to control Keynote. Maybe you might have some sort of, I didn't show you this specifically, but in Ecamm, you can have a scene with a video. So maybe you've got like a company video or something like that, a promo video or a description video or whatever it is for some product or whatever. You can create scenes with videos in it, and then you can play and pause them from here as well. You can also introduce sound effects and things like that and control all of that through here as well. So that is just to show you really how quickly it is to sort of build out these things with, combining Stream Deck with Ecamm, with your meeting platform, with the Keynote, PowerPoint. There's a PowerPoint plugin as well. It's just, it really is an absolute game changer, and it really adds this thing that I mentioned right at the beginning, which is fluidity, because then instead of having to, even forgetting that you're working with multiple applications, the idea that, sometimes you've got to go and find the thing that you want to activate with a mouse click, or maybe use a keyboard shortcut or something like that, to be able to just have a really simplified interface that you've created for yourself with the Stream Deck means that you've literally just got a few buttons to press. Incidentally, the Stream Decks that I'm using there are the I'll just quickly pull this up to sort of show you this. This one over here is the Stream Deck XL, so this has got 32 keys. There is also a regular Stream Deck that's got 15. They also do a mini Stream Deck that's just got 6 keys. This one here is slightly different. This is the Stream Deck Plus. It's got 4 keys that are operating exactly the same as this. It's also got some dials though, so that can be used to adjust things like volume in Ecamm, for example, levels of different audio. You can also use it for anything where you might want to sort of incrementally increase or decrease something. So I use it for things like brush size in Photoshop and things like that. What I will say is that if you're considering diving into the world of Stream Deck, if you're going to start with just one, I'd probably recommend the XL, to be honest, rather than the Stream Deck Plus if you don't necessarily have need for those dials. And I would recommend the XL over something like the regular one or the 6 key, because the danger is that you come into this with some idea of something that you want to do with it, like, for example, switching a few scenes and going forwards and backwards through your presentation slides. And so you might think that, well, I've got 3 scenes, I've got forwards and backwards for my presentation, and then maybe have a button to open Ecamm or something like that. The thing you'll find is whatever you think you might be able to do with Stream Deck, as soon as you get one, you'll realize that there are so many more possibilities and there is so much more that you can actually do with it. And so then you'll be glad to have a bit of extra screen real estate or extra buttons sort of on your device. So I would recommend going with, obviously, budget permitting, but go with the larger one if that is at all possible, because you will not regret it further on down the line. Incidentally, you might wonder what happens when you run out of buttons and why have I got multiple Stream Decks on my desk. So this actually really does sort of take us into the next step, which is my studio setup. So we'll talk through that, and I'll talk through it from the point of view, or at least starting from the Stream Deck perspective, because on the Stream Deck, you can have basically multiple profiles, which is, if you switch to a different profile, you get a whole different set of buttons. So although here I've got the controls for what I'm doing right now, when I'm doing something else, then I can press a button and switch that out to a whole different set of buttons there. And the other thing then is you've got multiple pages. So if I just come over to here, you'll see that I've got a load of buttons on here, but if I just press this arrow, it's going to go to a completely different screen with different buttons on it. You maybe couldn't see that. I don't know how well that's been picked up. But if I come over to here, if I press the button and I'll switch to a different scene, there we go. So here is one set of buttons. I've got these different pages of buttons within this profile though. So you can have multiple different pages in a profile, and you can also have multiple different profiles in here for all kinds of different things. So you don't necessarily need to think that, if you run out of 32 keys, you've suddenly got to go and buy another one. Certainly not. You can do a lot with pages and profiles. The time at which I added an additional Stream Deck into the mix, first of all, was I originally had the Stream Deck XL, and then I wanted to be able to control some of the things with the dials. I had another device which had dials, which was called the Loupedeck, which I didn't like the software on it. But once they introduced this one with dials, I added that into my setup when I wanted to be able to control things sort of incrementally using the dial. So that's why I then added this one in. So why did I add another 32 key in? It was when I was starting to do more complex live streams, complex productions. And what I didn't want to be doing is during any given live broadcast, I didn't want to be switching pages or profiles on any device, because part of the thing that you build up is this muscle memory of knowing exactly where things are. So I know that without looking, I can put my finger down on here, and I know that this is always going to take me back to my main scene. So this bottom left-hand corner, without looking down, I can just always put my hand down there, feel where it is, and then change scene. I also know where all of those other different camera angles are, so I can just do that without looking down. So you build up that muscle memory. As soon as you have to start switching to a different page like this, and now I'm on a different page on here, what I found was happening was sometimes I would be using my muscle memory, but because I'm on a different page, it was switching me back to something else, or it wasn't doing exactly what I was expecting. So once it got to the point that in any given production, I was using more than 32 actions, that's when I added in the additional Stream Deck XL. So it just works for my workflow, but by no means is it essential to be able to do all of this. The other thing that I've got that you can't see is a set of foot pedals, or rather two of them. And what they look like is, if I just come over here, in terms of this, I've got these different foot pedals, so pedal left and pedal right. And the right pedal, for example, this is also used to, here I've got this one that goes to my keynote. And then I've got the middle one. I've got a spotlight that, I've got the middle one, obviously. This one goes back to a slightly different scene. And then on my other pedal, I have, and I just realized I switched it out of the scene there. On my other pedal, I have my little one like this that highlights things. This one that is on the this pedal here is my spotlight. So if I want to just sort of spotlight stuff. So I use those pedals when I'm demonstrating things on the screen, where I may not have my hands free, but I still do want to be able to sort of highlight something. So I might have my hands on the keyboard, or the mouse, one hand on the keyboard, one hand on the mouse, but I want to be able to highlight something on screen. So that's what I use those for. There's lots of other use cases. I don't really do much editing. My whole thing is doing things in one take with no edits, although I do have to do a little bit with my podcast, with just basically chopping out the middle, adding in an ad and things like that. And so I find that using pedals for that is quite convenient as well. When you're sort of skimming through a timeline, you've got your hands on the keyboard and on the mouse, but you just want to be able to slice and chop and things like that. I also use it for Excel. Actually, there's lots of use cases I have for the foot pedals in that. Or if you're in a meeting, you want to sort of temporarily mute yourself, unmute as well. You can use them in that way. So that is my my Stream Deck setup and why I use so many. But as I say, it's not by any stretch or by any means essential to have so many. I definitely would recommend at least giving one Stream Deck a try, though. There is, incidentally, a Stream Deck app for the iPad and iPhone. It's a great way to try it out to see if you like the functionality of it, though, and I would highly recommend that. Continuing on with the studio setup, I will just talk about this briefly as well. So I've got my lights. As I say, you don't necessarily need to go to this extreme. These are NaN lights, and as I say before, if you are registered, you'll be getting a document that sort of details all of this in due course as well. If I just zoom out a little bit, you can see a bit more of what's going on. So I've got my my laptop is down here. At the moment, this is where my chat is, and a couple of notes. Then I've got my teleprompter just up above. So the teleprompter is for me to actually see my output. So this is directly in front of me. I'm not actually reading any notes off the teleprompter as they are intended for, but behind this screen here is my camera, but it means that I can look into that. When I look into the camera, I'm actually looking at the output. If I'm in a meeting, then the other participants would be in that meeting and I'd be looking at them instead. So that's where we're getting the sort of the eye contact. I've already talked about this, my Rodecaster. So this is my audio interface. It allows me to do some audio routing and also have some more control over my audio quality. I've already talked about this one, which is kind of my AV station as well. Then my primary monitor here, so this is for sort of anything that I'm sharing, is over here. But this is also kind of my workstation. So when I'm on a call or when I'm live streaming, I'm kind of sat over here. The desk is almost at 45 degrees. But then when I'm working, I'm actually over here. And I've got an additional monitor there, which is for calendar, mail, and reference and things like that. So that's in terms of the screen setup. The lights then, as I mentioned, were the NaN lights. So these are over here. The mic I'm using at the moment is the Shure MV7. I also do have the PodMic USB. There's a second mic here because I've got a second camera angle for some other content that I'm creating. So sometimes I'm sat in front of here, but there's some stuff that I'm rolling out in the new year that is slightly different against that back wall. So this kind of swings out and I've got a different camera angle set up for that. In terms of the cameras that I'm using, though, the camera that I'm looking at right now is a Sony ZV-E10. It's a great camera. It's around about $800, something like that. And I'm using that with a Sigma 30 millimeter, not milliliter, millimeter lens. And yeah, it has an HDMI out. that goes into something called a cam link. Again, all this will be going out with the gear guide that I'll be sending out to you all as well. But that goes into something called a cam link, which basically takes the HDMI out from the camera, plugs into that, and then that plugs into the computer over USB, and the computer then just sees it effectively as a webcam. So that's how you're able to get, you know, any camera you can just take in that way. The top-down camera that I have is a Sony ZV-1. That is a slightly lower cost model. It doesn't have an interchangeable lens, so it's just got a not a fixed lens. It's got a zoom lens, but like a sort of built-in one that you can't change. And then all of these other camera angles that I've been sort of flicking to throughout this time are actually these. Let me see if I can just sort of show you this a little bit better. Maybe just move this camera around. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. Sorry, you're going to see the back of my head. But this up here is the 3 other camera angles is one of these, which is an OBSBot Tail Air is the name of the camera. And this is the PTZ camera, that pan, tilt, zoom camera that I was mentioning earlier. So if I now press some of these buttons on my desk, you'll see that I can get this to move. So that is just automatically moving into these different positions. So that is that over there. It's a 4K camera. It works over either the network using a network protocol called NDI, which transmits video over the network, and it also works over HDMI as well. So let me just come back to this other position. If I zoom this one back again, there we go. And so this one as well is just the exact same camera, or another one of them at least, and then I've got another one of them over there, and that just allows me to sort of have these different sort of presets. Obviously, this is massive overkill for an online meeting. I'm not suggesting you have multi-camera setups for an online meeting. I just happen to be a YouTuber and make content about all of this stuff as well, so that's why I happen to have these cameras and that. But I would say if you are going to be starting from zero in your online meetings, in terms of order of investment, a Stream Deck, everyone should have a Stream Deck. I believe that. If you use a computer, you should probably have a Stream Deck. It can add significantly more value in terms of time saving than it costs. When it comes to the meeting setup, though, you know, the best camera in the world is going to look terrible if you've got, you know, no lights on whatsoever. So definitely, you know, thinking about the lighting is something that can level up with any camera. And the built-in webcams that we've got these days are already pretty good. You know, just a small investment in any you know, camera to upgrade that, be it your you know, the camera that we've got in our pocket, our iPhones or whatever, then the cameras on those these days are pretty decent. Not for mine, by the way. I'm a tech expert, but my little guilty secret is I'm still using an iPhone 6S because I don't take calls, so I don't really use a phone. But anyway, most normal people have got a pretty decent phone, a pretty decent camera on their phone. So even just having that mounted and then you know, leveling up your lights is a good thing. The teleprompter, though, is something that really does make a massive difference. Right now, you know, I'm looking out of the screen at you, and hopefully you feel there's some sort of connection because I'm talking to you, aren't I? Well, when you are in an online meeting, the same holds true. And so many people are kind of like looking down, or they've got, you know, their camera is over here. They've got their main monitor that they're looking at the call on. And so I have calls with many people where this is the view that I see of them because they're looking at me on their screen. And then every so often they glance at the camera because they remember to, but we haven't got that sort of connection, or at least, you know, I'm not feeling that back from them. But everyone who I'm on a call with will know that, you know, I'm speaking to them because I'm looking through the camera. And that is something that is so critical, I think, you know, to, as I said right at the beginning, we're trying to at least replicate and hopefully in some ways improve on what we can do on in-person connections. And so being able to have this equivalent of, you know, the camera being positioned at the right height, at eye level, we're looking out at each other, it makes just all the difference. So the teleprompter is actually one of the highest priority things I would say that you could get. Microphone, we mustn't forget that as well, is kind of up there as well. We do get carried away in creator circles with, chasing diminishing returns and looking for, these slight things that we can do to incrementally level up our video and our audio. And whilst that's great, it's great to strive for perfection. Just note that anything that you're going to be, if you just invest, I would say anything above $100 on a microphone, generally is going to sound a lot better than anything that you could have sort of built in. So let's just check in with the chat for a second, and I'll see where we're up to. Great week, Alec. And for those watching, this is just the tip of the iceberg of, oh, well, thank you very much. Yes, it is indeed. It is indeed. Yes, I do cover this at length, almost to the point of, excess, I should say. No matter how much I use the pedal, I'm still not a better drummer. Yes, it doesn't help with everything. Spotlight. Sorry, I have a habit of doing this sometimes. It's assume knowledge. This tool that I'm using here. So when I highlighted this thing and I showed this particular thing here, and then I did this little spotlight. This is a Mac app called ProMouse. Again, sorry for completely glossing over that. That is an app called ProMouse, and there are keyboard shortcuts to activate those little things. So then I have those as a pedal and also as a button as well. So it means that I can sort of highlight and spotlight things. It's great for doing screen demos because I do a lot of tutorial style videos and I have online courses as well. But it is also just great for in meetings. If you're sharing a spreadsheet and you just want to zoom into something, or maybe a combination of highlight something and to block out everything else. So yeah, sorry about that. That was the ProMouse app is the name of the app there. And Dan, you've got it. This is the thing about live streaming that's different to having a live Q&A. So as in the one that we'll be having on Monday. When you are live streaming, you go down the comments and then you realize, oh, somebody's already answered the question because you're just sort of reading them. But yeah, it is indeed ProMouse. Is all that powered with the laptop computer? Yes. So the way things are working, that's something I'm glad you mentioned that, because what I've got is essentially my laptop is here. Then there is a dock that is plugged into the laptop, or the laptop's plugged into a dock. The dock powers the monitors. So it's a powered dock, actually a Wavelink dock, and that is where I've got my extra displays plugged into. My Ethernet also goes into that as well. I've also got a second hub. We had this chat in the Academy just a couple of days ago as well. What's the difference between a dock and a hub? So a dock is something that's going to have all sorts of different connections in. Like you could literally just plug your computer into it and you might have your audio, displays, Ethernets, various different things, some other USB sockets and so on. And so it's a way to connect multiple different connections into your computer. A hub, on the other hand, is generally going to be just sort of multiple USB connections into another USB, or in my case, I've got like a Thunderbolt hub, and it allows me to plug in, up to 3 USB-Cs and 4 USB-As. So that's the difference. A hub is just more kind of multiples of the same versus a dock, which is all sorts of different connections. So I do have a hub as well. And so things like my Rodecaster, there's 2 channels of that. There is my 3 Stream Decks on my desk, they go into that. Then my Stream Deck pedals. So all of these things, they go into powered hubs and docks. And that's the important thing, is to make sure that they are powered and they've got some, high power to them. So, 100 watt, 60 watt or more, or something like that. If you have got a sort of unpowered hub, which is where you've just got a dongle that plugs into your computer, and then there's some other USB sockets or whatever, and there's no separate power going into them, then you can run into real issues there, because some of these things, especially the Stream Decks that have got little screens in them, they require power. So nothing's actually getting powered by the laptop as such, but they're all getting plugged into the laptop. The other thing is obviously all the cameras coming in. So camera above me and the one in front, and one of these op spots, they are coming in over HDMI. And then the other two that are behind, in fact, you can see another one just there. That is the one that is my kind of over the shoulder shot. So it's that one just there. And you can just see it standing on that little stand. That's actually coming over Ethernet. So it's over a network connection. So that's using this NDI, which is a video transfer protocol over a network. So it's happened again. So it was Dan in Canada answered the first one just before I did. Now it's Dan again here with answering the question that I've just answered as well, because I didn't just read ahead. I want to use phone as a display in teleprompter. I've seen cables that connect HDMI and Lightning, but they seem to be used to take the video from the phone and show it on a bigger screen, opposite to my need. Yeah, that is true. So yeah, if you wanted to use your phone as a display, the reason I'm just sort of pausing there is because if you're using an iPad, there is an app which I'm just wondering, it might work on the phone as well. There's an app called Duet Display, and that basically turns your iPad into an additional display, and it's an iOS app that runs. And it's probably cross-platform. Excuse me, it's probably cross-platform actually. Excuse me, just while I choke there for a moment. Yeah, it's called Duet Display, and that it runs on your tablet and it runs on your computer, and then it basically makes your tablet as an extended display. I'm just wondering, it might actually work on a phone as well, so that would be worth checking out, the Duet Display. There is also the Sidecar. Now, does Sidecar work with iPhones? Or I always just say iPhones, I mean phones. On a Mac, there is this thing called Sidecar, which is built into the Mac, where you can use your iPad as an extended display as well, just built into the Mac, and that might work with phones as well. What other way could you do this? Another way, depending on what it is you are doing, if you just literally want to have, because you are an Ecamm user, I think. If you want to just have your Ecamm output go onto your phone, another way to do it would be in Ecamm there is something called NDI output from that as well. I'll just come into here. If you go into output and then you see here NDI output, you can toggle on the NDI output. And then what you could do technically is you could have an NDI. If you look at, what's the tool now? There's NDI HX Capture, takes your iPhone and sends it over the network, but there is one to receive. So look for an NDI receiver app. I forget the name of it now. And then technically you could have your Ecamm output going to the phone that way as well. So there are a few different ways that you could do it. I think. So Camo, yeah. So this is going the wrong way though. So yeah, Camo is a great app that is used if you want to use your phone as a camera. But yeah, what Jane is looking for, I gather, is that you want to just use your phone as the display. So you want to send the video from the computer to the phone, so that you can use the phone in the teleprompter as a display. So Camo doesn't do that. Camo's the opposite. Camo is using your phone as a camera. Camo's great, by the way, if you are looking to use your any kind of phone as a webcam. I highly recommend Camo as a great way to get that into there. And that's just a desktop app. It works wirelessly or connected, and it just accesses all of your cameras, your phone cameras functionality to then be used as a webcam. So I definitely have Camo as well, and I can definitely recommend it for that. Do you know if key lights are good to use? If you mean by key light the Elgato key light, yeah, they are great. I mean, the technical name for the where is it? If I go to the right scene, this light here, the primary light source is known as the key light. The secondary one that you might have to fill in the shadows is known as the fill light. I talked about this on day 2 of this workshop. And then the one behind is usually called the hair light. I like to just call it the backlight for obvious reasons. So that would be this one just here if I switch over. So there's basically the key light here, the fill light to fill in the shadows, and then the hair light to highlight the fact that I have none is the one that's over the back, and that's intended to just sort of give you separation from the background. However, Elgato, who make the Stream Deck, make a whole range of streaming and studio equipment, and they make something called the key light. And the key light is a flat panel. So actually, if you're thinking about adding in some lighting to your office, something like this might not be practical. I get it. It's not ideal for many studio spaces. The key light from Elgato, though, is a sort of flat panel. It comes with a couple of stands that clamp onto the desk. So if you've got your monitor on your desk, then they come up either side, and then you can put the light on you that way. They're really effective, and you can control them by Stream Deck as well. So yeah, they are a great option if you're not going to go full-blown studio crazy as I did. And there we go, Dan, with the answer before me that I'm now only just getting to. So you do use Duet, and that goes to the phone as well, I guess, does it? And then Shoot if you're using the phone as a camera feed, though. Shoot's another one. I definitely prefer Camo than Shoot, just because it gives you full access to all of the controls and things like that. But yeah, Shoot is another alternative to that as well. Which teleprompter do I use? So the actual teleprompter itself, by the way, Elgato have brought out a thing called the Elgato Prompter, which is a sort of all-in-one device. It's got the actual teleprompter component and the screen built in with it. You just plug it in over one cable, and it functions as both a display, so you can drag things onto it. But it's also got the scrolling text aspect, which is what a teleprompter originally is. It's got that all built into it as well as into their software, and you control it all with Stream Deck. So that is definitely something worth checking out. In terms of what mine, though, is, it is, if I just maybe try and give you a bit of a better view of it, I can sort of zoom in like this with my little PTZ camera. So this is, I always get the name of it. It's let me just pull it up for you. Let me just grab it off Amazon, because it's impossible for me to actually pronounce it even. There are loads of different brands of them. So what's a couple of popular ones like Glide Gear, things like that. This one is called something like iLock&Z or something like that. Let me see. I'll try and find it this way. I can't talk and type. This one here, is it? I'll try and get it. There we go. This is it. Finally. It is spelled like this, iLock&Z. Now, I was initially a little bit wary of it, because it's relatively low cost compared to some of the other ones. And usually if you're getting a low cost teleprompter, I mean, there's some that are a lot lower cost than this. Usually if you're getting a really low cost teleprompter, the thing that is going to be that you're going to regret is the glass on it. So if you've got, if the glass is not good and they've used cheap glass in the actual, the reflector part of it, then that's obviously going to affect not just what you see, but more importantly, your camera is looking through this glass. So if you've got really poor quality glass here in this section, and this actually just sort of highlights what's going on with the teleprompter, by the way, your camera is behind that this part here, and then your monitor is down sort of horizontally here, and you're looking in through the glass into the camera, but you're seeing the reflection of what is on the screen down there. So yeah, if you get one with if the glass is not a good quality, you might well have the best camera in the world with an expensive lens, but then if it's coming through poor quality glass, then it's going to be affecting the optics and everything like that. However, I was pleasantly surprised by this. I thought, oh, I'll give it a go, and if it doesn't work, I'll send it back. But actually, I was pleasantly surprised by it for the price. And just to put this into context, something like this. So I think mine is actually 17-inch, so it's the 16 or 17. But yeah, it was around about $140. But comparable ones are, sort of more expensive than that. What this doesn't include, though, the Elgato prompter that I mentioned includes the screen, whereas this does not include the screen. Now, one issue that people have with teleprompters, or one thing that they have to solve, is the screen itself needs to be flipped. It needs to be reversed because you're looking at the reflection of it. Now, you can use iPads and iPhones, but just note that it's going to be back to front. And so if you're going to be using this, day in, day out for your meetings, having the thing flipped like that, you need to find a solution for that. Now, Duet Display, I think, does do the flipping. There is also another external dongle you can get called the Luna Display, I think it's called, that plugs into the iPad, and then that allows you to flip it as well. So with Duet Display and with that, you can do the flipping, but you can't just sort of plug it in on Sidecar or whatever, and it will be the right way around. However, the type of monitor, so if you were going to use an external monitor, then a regular monitor wouldn't do it because they don't have the ability to flip. But this monitor here is actually a Lilliput, which is a field monitor for a camera. So it's normally plugged into a camera to be able to flip the image round the other way. So that's what I use on mine. And it's like a 12.5-inch monitor is effectively what is there in that teleprompter. So that's what I'm using for that. The newer teleprompter, but I see. That's answering this question. The in terms of the software, just coming back to this one then. So I don't generally use teleprompting software because all my videos they're generally sort of me waffling, for want of a better word. I don't have a script and such like that. However, if you do want to use one, because I do use it for my guest intros on my podcast, is the one time when I use an actual sort of script and I want the teleprompting thing. And the one that I use for that, if I just open up this, is this one. It's called Teleprompter Plus. That's the actual app that I use when I do want to have some sort of teleprompting, and it's this one for the Mac. This is, sorry, there are other PC ones, but I use this. I've tried other ones out of the App Store, but Teleprompter Plus is the one that I use, and this has a transparency feature. I mean, a lot of them do actually, but the window is basically floating and can be transparent. So what that means is, in the case of my podcast, for example, I can have me and the guest on screen, but I can still have the teleprompter script scroll over the top of it. So that is what I use for that. And yeah, the new one from Elgato does do that as well. Because it's all in one integrated, it does that as well. And yeah, it's had some great reviews. I have no problem with teleprompter software going to phone. Issue is trying to get Ecamm video onto the phone. So yes, that would be the potential to use an NDI application on your phone to receive the NDI feed from Ecamm. You know what? Actually, thinking about it, Video Pencil. So Video Pencil is the application that I use. Now with Dan mentioning Shoot, I wonder if Shoot just does this as well. Video Pencil is the app that I use for annotating on the screen, and I see my output from Ecamm on the screen, and this allows me to sort of draw on the screen. So this is, I mentioned this app yesterday or the day before. This is the annotation app. So I can sort of draw on the screen with my pencil and then it comes over onto Ecamm. But one of the things about this is this receives the feed from Ecamm. So yeah, Video Pencil though, I don't think it works on the iPhone, but essentially you would want something like that. If you've got a phone, you would just want an NDI application to receive from Ecamm. So let me see. I'm losing the track of a couple of these comments, but and if you meant meeting video, then that's a little bit more tricky. Yeah, that is a bit more tricky because you would. Okay, so there is a way. So there's a program called NDI Scan Converter. That then you can pull any window from your computer and transmit that over NDI. So this is getting a bit of a stretch, but you could use NDI Scan Converter to basically share the meeting window, share that into your over NDI over the network, and then use an NDI app on your phone to then pull that into there. That would actually do it. Promouse, I've been using that for years. It's really great. During meetings, I use the break off screen in the prompter to show the guest gallery and the main speaker screen on my main displays. Yeah, that's kind of similar to what I do actually. So I have if I'm on a group call, then I'll have the group in there and the individual one down below, or otherwise vice versa. No problem, Dan. I appreciate all the promotion I can get. Trust me. The two Dans. Let's see where we're up to with any questions. You haven't been able to get your key lights connected to the Stream Deck. I'm not sure about that. I'll definitely reach out to Elgato support though, because they're generally pretty responsive and pretty good about that. I'm not sure what could be causing that. I don't actually use the key lights myself, so I haven't got a huge amount of experience with that. Duet will work with iPhone and iPad, so that's all of those things I was just saying, Jane. Forget them all. The Duet works with the iPad, so with the iPhone. So basically, yeah, you would use Duet Display. Duet Display would then just show up. Your display would just show up as an extra external display, and then you could just drag the thing onto it. So that is the solution. If only I'd read a little bit further along. Incidentally, when I talk about this, let me just pull up the settings here. Because if I go over to my displays in my Apple system settings, you can see, and then I go to arrange. This is basically what's going on here. So I've got my teleprompter is up here. This is my main Mac display, and this is my laptop display, my main Mac display. This is this little side one. There is another one over here that's just this is the one that's kind of like my AV control thing. So the point about this, all I wanted to show you was that the teleprompter monitor does actually just show up as, another monitor in this case for me. And indeed, if you are using the app that we've just mentioned, the Duet display, it would also just show up there as well. So Elgato lights work well in Stream Deck, just can't get newer lights on Stream Deck, and that too is annoying. Yeah, it is the connectivity issues. I've just recently had an issue with my NAN lights actually losing the Bluetooth connection. So yeah, it's fine when all these things work, but then occasionally there'll be stuff that happens that we lose them. If I don't have the Elgato Control Station app turned on in the Mac, then Stream Deck doesn't work. Could be. Yeah, I wonder if there is I'm not sure about this. I was going to just go down a rabbit hole of trying to figure it out, but I don't have the app, so I won't be able to test that. Video Pencil is only on the iPad. Oh yeah, so yes. So but anyway, yeah, Duet Display is going to be the way to go with that one in any case. Okie dokie. So where are we up to? I've kind of talked about my production setup. So in terms of the workflow, I've kind of really talked about this in many ways already today, but I will just sort of quickly go through this sort of one final time. I mean, I have the meeting normally, and we're talking about from a meeting point of view. So I'd have the kind of meeting would be in my teleprompter. I then get set up with all the different things that I want to share potentially. I've got my keynote, which is down here. So this is, although you can see sort of me in it, this is just my keynote live video feed coming through. I've kind of moved things around just whilst I've been demoing things for you here today, but generally I would just have everything queued up on the screen where I might want to do it for the sharing during the session or whatever. And then I would also have like my Ecamm stuff is over here. So in terms of workflow, it's pretty much just getting all of my different scenes, my different cameras all set up prior to the meeting, prior to going live. There's no difference for me really than a live production like this into YouTube versus doing a webinar, doing a workshop in Zoom or whatever. I always say that it's a force of habit after so many years, but doing my live production into a meeting platform or whatever, it's the same sort of process. Let me see where else we are. If there's any other specific questions on setups or anything like that, or maybe the live production aspect, then happy to take any other questions. If anyone's watching on the replay, of course, go ahead and drop the questions down into the chat as well. And next steps, what could we do as as we as we go? Do you know what? Let me just pull this up, because every time I do a session like this, I always get somebody asking about this clock. It's kind of like a thing. So this clock that I've got directly above it, I've kind of mounted it onto the teleprompter up there. Let me see if I can find this, because it's just a clock that shows the time, but it's just I like to have you've got it in the, obviously, in the menu bar of the Mac or whatever. Let me see if I can quickly find this. It is somewhere. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll put it into the gear list with everything else, and add it into there and send it out. I can't just remember the details of it just offhand. I could go and have a look for it, but I think it might take me a little while to find it. It's been a while. Let me see. It might just be in here. Actually, it might be in this list. But it does come up. It's actually, I tell you what, it's in all of my YouTube videos. So much so because so many people asked for it. It's in the description of. I've got it here. I've got it right here. It's in the description of all of my YouTube videos, though. Let me grab this. I'll drop it into the chat. There we go. I can't spell clock, it seems. Let me try that again. That nearly went disastrously wrong. There we go. I've got all of the letters in there now, not just 4 of them. So there we go. That is the digital clock that I have on my thing. And how much is it? It's having posted the link, it says currently unavailable, but hopefully you'll see some others. It might just be currently unavailable to my destination here in Thailand, but that is the clock that I'm using. So yeah, there we go. And as you can see, it is currently where are we now? If I go back, it's currently 35 minutes past midnight here in the north of Thailand. So right, so let me just talk about some next steps, because if you are interested in sort of taking things to the next level and leveling up your online meetings, I do just want to quickly mention the Take One Tech Academy. So we've got a few Academy folks in here, and especially Dan keeping me on track here as well. But the Take One Tech Academy is my educational platform, if you like, or educational academy that includes access to a wealth of courses covering all of the sorts of stuff we've been talking about over the past week. How to level up your audio with the Rodecaster Masterclass, the Stream Deck Masterclass, Keynote Masterclasses, and Ecamm as well. So we've got all of the masterclasses to cover off what we've been talking about here. We also do monthly workshops where we take a deep dive into things like building an online content business, boosting your efficiency using things like Stream Deck and so on, technical setup for presentations, which is kind of similar to what I've been doing today. And then we also have weekly Q&As as well. So if that is something that is of interest to you, I'll leave a link in the description and also in the chat here as well. You can also get access just directly to those courses as individual courses as well. I've left a link in the description as well to all of the to my website, where you can find all of my courses and consultations and things like that as well. Now, in terms of what's coming up next in this session, though, obviously this is the last of the live sessions right here on YouTube. But there is that bonus Q&A session that is coming up on Monday, the same time as we've been doing throughout this week. That will be in a Vivo meeting. I'll be sending out a link to that in due course as well. And for best results for that, join in either Chrome or Edge browser. You're going to get the best result out of that meeting, or of course the desktop app. So if you haven't already, go ahead and try Vivo. You'll find a link to that in the description as well. So go and try Vivo Meetings. Go and download the app, and then you can obviously join for it in there. Join in there as well. So do I have it set to countdown? No, the clock is just it's just a regular clock, so it's just big and bold to keep me on track, and I can just look up and I can see the time. It's just right there above that, rather than me trying to squint to see it in the menu bar or anywhere else. So that's why I have the clock there. It's not a countdown clock as such. So with that said, yeah, if there are no further questions or comments or anything like that from the folks in the chat, thank you so much for being here with me today and through all of these sessions as well. If you do have any follow-up questions or anything like that, of course, feel free to reach out. You'll find my contact details down in the description as well. And if you want to have a one-to-one to help you with any of this stuff, then you can book a discovery call there, and then we can take it from there as well. But thank you so much for being here, and I will see you all. Hopefully, I'll see you on Monday. If you haven't already registered, click the register button down in the description as well, and then you'll get the link to join that meeting as well. All right, take care, everyone. Have a great day wherever you are in the world, and I'll see you very soon.